Alright guys, welcome back to my channel and today we're going to be creating a Roman numeral converter which converts any number into a Roman numeral. So we could do 24 or convert it into a Roman numeral 24. We could also do a bigger number, 300. This will be 300, and we could do even in the thousands, so 3224 or 234, which will be this. So I will be using JS Fiddle to an online code editor to code this, since most of you might not have VS Code, but I will also create another video with the VS Code, and you can find, so let me show you all the steps I've created. So I've created steps which you could follow step by step to complete this project. So what we could do over here, if you can see, I have step 1 through 14 for HTML. Also the JavaScript, which is step 1 through 13, and the CSS, which is the full code for the CSS. And I'm basically going to be following all the steps to create this Roman numeral converter. So what we could do, let me just switch back to the online editor. So before I do start, I do have other videos on my channel, like the pyramid generator, a binary converter, a to-do app, a football team cards app, and much more on my channel. Consider subscribing and liking. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers by the next month. So yeah, let's get started. So you could go on jsfiddle.net. It's completely free, and we are going to start with the HTML. So I'm going to copy all the steps and we will follow them step by step. So instead of me putting all the steps here, let's just start with step 1, which will be start with the HTML document with the doc type declaration. So in order to do this first step, we will have doc type tag HTML, just like this. And this does not need a closing tag. And make sure you have a exclamation point in the beginning of doc type. So that should be step 1 right there. And now step 2 will be to begin the HTML document and specify the language. So in order to do that, we could do an HTML tag with lang equal to en, which is English. Close that off and we should get a closing tag for the HTML. So now inside the HTML tag, we will have a head tag, just like this. And I am going to remove the other steps so it doesn't get confusing once it's completed. So inside the head tag, we will have step 3, which is to define the character encoding. So our head tag will contain all the meta tags. So meta char set is equal to UTF-8. And we're going to close that off. And under this, still inside the head, we're going to have a meta name. Oh, let me put the step down. So step 4 will be to define the viewport for responsive design. So we're going to have meta tag name, which is going to be equal to viewport, just like this. And then right beside that, we're going to have a content equals to width equals to device dash width. comma, and we're gonna have initial scale equal to 1.0. And make sure to close the meta tag off at the end. So now under the meta tag, still inside the head, we will have a title, which will basically, if we go back here, you see the Roman numeral converter on my tab. That's what the title tag will do. So we will have a title tag, open and closed, and inside here we could specify what we want. So Roman numeral converter, just like this. And the last step, still inside the head tag, under the title, we will have to link the CSS file to the style document. So in order to do that, we will have a link tag, which will have a rel equal to style sheets, just like this. And beside that, we're gonna have a href linking to our style sheet. So for this, we could do style.css. This doesn't matter in the browser editor because this will always link to the CSS on the right here. But if we're using VS Code, we would have to specify where the she is in the href. So now that is it for the, make sure to close off the link tag, just like this. So now we could see our heading is completed. So I'm gonna remove all the steps, 3 through 6. So it's easier to read, just like this. So now under our head, inside the HTML will be our body. And this is where all our code will go. So let me just make it easier to read. So inside our body, at step 7, we're going to create a container to hold the converter. So we will have a div tag, just like this. And our div will have a class equal to container, just like this. So we could use it as a CSS later on to style. And then inside our div, we will have step 8, which is to create a header for the converter. So we're gonna have a h1 tag, header tag, and let me just make it so it's easier to read, just like this. So this h1 tag will be basically what we see over here, the Roman numeral converter. So we could have Roman numeral converter, just like this. And now step 9, right under the h1, still inside the container div, we're going to create an input field for users to enter numbers, which will be this field right here. And in order to do that, we're going to have an input tag, just like this, which doesn't need a closing tag since it's a self-closing tag. And inside the numeral input, we'll have type equals to number, since we only want number to be inputted into the input tag. And then ID, so we could style later to input number, just like this, using camel casing. And a placeholder equal to enter a number, just like this. So make it easier to read, I'll just expand it a little bit. So the placeholder is what we see over here, enter a number inside our input. So now under the input, we're also gonna need to create a button to trigger the conversion. So this button right here, which says convert. So we could have a button tag, which will be just like this with the closing button. And we could have in the button, we could do convert, and it will show a button just like over here. Make sure you're saving it so you can see everything on the browser on the right. So to save, you can do Control S or Command S. So this is our convert button, and the button inside the button tag, we're gonna have a on click, which is gonna be equal to convert to Roman, just like this. I mean, it's a function call, which we'll have in JavaScript after this. Now, whenever we click it, this convert to Roman function should run, which we didn't specify yet. Now, under the button, we're gonna have a step 11, which will be create a div to display the converted result. So if I go back to the code, the full code, you can see the Roman numeral over here. This is what we're gonna be creating now. So now step 11, we're gonna create a div with the closing div tag. And inside here, we will have it blank, but an ID equal to result, just like this. And we can use this result later to display the result. So now this is it for our body. So I'm gonna delete all the steps so it is easier to read. And you can always pause the video and do the step yourself before I show the solution. So now we have one more step, which is step 12, and it's gonna be inside the body after the closing div tag, the closing container div tag. So we're gonna be linking the JavaScript file to add functionality, like the convert to Roman function. So inside the body closing and the div closing, in between, we're gonna be adding a script tag, just like this, with the source equal to wherever our JavaScript is. So we can do script.js, and this doesn't matter on the browser since everything is already linked, but on the VS Code, it should be linked to the JS file. So it's going to have a closing tag, but with nothing inside it. So now this is it for our HTML, and we can move on to our CSS. And the CSS is going to be pretty quick since we already have, since it will be just designing. So what we could do is start off with the body, which reference to everything inside the body in our HTML. If you can see my highlights. So our body selector and then our body declaration, we're gonna have in here, we're gonna be using the font family, and this will be Arial, sans serif, just like this. And make sure you have this closing semicolon after each of the properties. And now we're gonna have also a background color. Make sure you do Control S, and now we can see the text changed to being Arial. And the second one is sans serif. If the Arial is not available, it will convert to the sans serif. So now we could do a background color just like this. This background color will be hashtag 121366, which will give us a blue background. We're gonna have also a margin of 0. And when I save this, we should see no space now. And we're gonna also have a padding of 0. Padding of 0, we're gonna have display flex, and we're gonna have a justify. We're gonna have a justify content to center, which should bring everything to the center of the browser. And we're gonna also have a line items center, which should bring everything to the middle after I specify the height. So we're gonna have a height of 100 vertical height VH, just like this. Now everything should be in the middle, and if I do make it bigger, it'll still be in the middle, even this way. So now we have the body. We're gonna be styling the converter or the container. So this is our div with the container class. And in order to select the container, we're going to use a period at the beginning and whatever you put at the class name. So container. So a period is for a class, and a hashtag will be for an ID, like the input. So the ID input number, in order to style this, we'll be using a hashtag. So the same way, we're going to open the body, just like this, so the container, and we're going to have a background color of white. So we could do FFF for white or just white, like this. Control S to save, and we should see something like this. So we could see everything inside the div, the H1, the input, the button, and the result. The background color should be white. And we're gonna also have a padding of 20 pixels. Now we should see some space around each element. And we're gonna also have a border radius. Border radius of 10 pixels. I did spell radius wrong, so IUS, just like this, and we should see the corners rounded. And we're gonna also have a box shadow, which will cast a shadow on the converter box or the container box. So we're gonna have a box shadow of 4 pixels, 0 pixels on top, 4 pixels on the left and right, and 8 pixels on the top and or 4 pixels on top and bottom, and or on the bottom actually, and then 8 pixels on the left and right. And we're gonna specify the color we want the shadow to be. So we can do RGBA, and we could do black. So we could do 0, 0, 0, which is black, and we can also specify the alpha, which is gonna be basically transparency. So we're gonna do it 0.10% or 0.1, which is 10%, just like this. We're gonna close that off. We can save that now. We should see a shadow, which is hard to see right now. And we're also gonna have a text align center. We should line all the text inside the container to the center. So now under this, we're gonna be designing our H1. So we're gonna do the H1 selector, and this H1 will be the Roman numeral converter over here inside our container. And then we could do a margin top of 0. And we should have no margin now. And we could do a color, which is the text color of hashtag 333, which is a gray. So now it should be a low grade instead of black. And now under the H1, we're going to be doing the input styles and to specify which type of input we're going to do. Since this is a type of number, we're going to be doing input type equals number, and this will style every input with the type of number if we have multiple. And inside the input, we're going to have a padding of 10 pixels on the left, bottom, top, and right. Just like this. And now we should see the input tag a little bigger. We're going to have a margin of 10 pixels, which will push everything around it 10 pixels away. Just like this. We're going to have a border. We're going to have a border. And in order to do a border, we're going to have it 1 pixel stroke, a solid border. We could also have dash or whatever you guys like. And then the color of the border, just like this. And now we should see the border to a light gray. And if I were to change it to 4 pixels, it should be a little thicker. And then I could also change it from solid to dashed, which will be a dashed. So we're going to keep it back to solid and 1 pixel. Now for under this, we're going to have a border radius, which will make a rounded corners of 5 pixels. Just like this. Now we should see it rounded a little. And that is it for our input. Now we're going to be styling the button convert. So now I could just the reason I'm not taking the ID, like the input ID, is that there is only one input, so I could just take the whole input just like this instead of having the ID of input number, and also the button, same thing. So we're going to do button. We're going to have a padding on the top and bottom. We're going to have 10 pixels, so 10 pixels. And the left and right, we will have 20 pixels, just like this. We should something like this. Now a background color of blue. So we're gonna have 007 BFF, which will make it a blue. We're gonna also have a text color, which will be just color of white. So just type white, just like this. And under this, we will have a border set to none, which will take this border away if I do save it. We're gonna have a border radius, which will round the corners. It's 5 pixels. So right now, if I hover over this, there's a regular mouse. And now we're gonna do a cursor of pointer, which will make it just like I said. If I hover over this convert button now, it will make it into a pointer. and a transition of the background color of 0.3 seconds and the ease. This right now we won't see it, but this is an animation. So right under this button, once it's done, we're gonna have a button with the a colon or semicolon, or actually a colon of hover, and this will tell the hover colors. So when I hover over this, it will change it to whatever I specify in the button hover. So we're gonna have only one property in here, which will be the background color of hashtag 0056B3, just like this. So now if I do hover over this, it will change it to a darker blue, and this is what transition does. So if I remove this, it'll just be instant, and if I add this back now, you can see a little animation or transition. So now our last CSS will be to design the result div, which will be over here, just like this. We will have it selected by the ID of result, which we specified over here, which will have an ID of result. So ID of result, and we're gonna have a margin top. Right now I'll just add something in here so you can see it on my HTML. So we're gonna have a margin top of 20 pixels. And this will give us a margin top of 20 pixels. We're gonna have a font size, which will change the size of the text to 24 pixels. Make it a little bigger. And a font weight, which is to make it bold or bolder. We just do bold. We can also use a number 600. For now, we'll just do it bold, so it's easier to read, and it'll make it bold. So now we're gonna go back to our HTML, and we're gonna remove the 24 that I put here because this will be a dynamic result. So now we're getting pretty close to what we have on our original code. And now the only thing to do is to do the JavaScript. So if we do 24 here, we will see nothing because there is no JavaScript. So now if we move on to the JavaScript, so step one, let me just copy it from here. So step one will be create a variable named result div, and this will hold the reference to the HTML element where the result will be displayed. So basically we're going to make the div over here in our HTML with the result ID a dynamic ID. In order to do this, we will need to get the result div. So we need to get this div right here, so we could input the result. So we can do a const result div. So we're going to define the variable result div using a const keyword because it will hold a reference to the HTML element, and this reference will not be reassigned. Otherwise, if it was reassigned, it will make it a let instead of a const. So we're going to do result div is equal, and we're going to have it, so in order to get whatever is inside the result div, we're going to be using the HTML element where the result will be displayed. We're going to be using getElementById method provided by the document object, passing result as a parameter. So we're going to do result equals to document dot get element by ID, and inside here we will have whatever we specified over here for the ID, which is result. So result, just like this. So now remove step 1, and we have const result div equals to document.getElement by ID, and this is getting the ID of result. And now, so for step 2, we're going to create a function called convert to Roman to handle the conversion process. So over here, our button on click has a convert to Roman call, but now we're going to be making the function for this call. So now we're going to create a function. So we do function convert to Roman, convert to Roman, just like this with the empty body. And remember, you can always pause this and do this yourself. So now step 3, inside our convert to Roman function, let me just make it look better. So now we're going to be creating a variable named input number to store the value entered by the user. And we're going to be using the let keyword to define this input number, since the value will be reassigned during the function execution. So this means that for step 3, so when a user puts a variable inside the input and clicks convert, we want to take this number. We want to know what this number is. So we're going to retrieve the value entered by the user from the HTML input field with the ID input number using the getElement by ID method, just like we did over here for the const result div. So we could do let, since we're going to be redefining this or reassigning this during the function execution. We're going to do let input number equal to document getElement by ID, and we're going to be getting the ID of input number, which we could find. So our input right here, tag, has an ID of input number. So we just take this and put input number like this. And now we want to get the value. And in order to get the value, at the end of our document.getElement by ID, we do dot value, just like this. And this will give us the value. So now if I do a console log of input number, just like this, and save that, we open the console up, and if I put 24 convert, we should see the input of 24. So now we remove the console log, and we're going to remove the step 3, and this is what we have. So now step 4, still inside our convert to Roman function, under the let input number, we're going to validate the user input to ensure it is valid. It is a valid number within the acceptable range. So this range will be, we're going to check if the input number is not a number. So we're going to check if the input number is not, so we're going to validate if it is a number, or if it is less than 1, or if it is greater than 399, because the Roman numerals only go up to 3,999. And then we're going to use the isNaN function to determine if the input is not a number. So I know it's a lot, but this is a check to see if someone were to type 2,200, if someone was type 2 million or even 20,000, it won't break the code. So that's why validations are important. So still inside the function under the let input, we're going to do if with the if statement. So now we're going to do if isNaN, which is a function to determine if the input is not a number. And we're gonna do a parenthesis, and we're gonna type inside here. We're gonna type if isnan is an input number, if it is not an input number, or, and to specify or, we could use the two straight brackets, or input number, and it says check if it is not a number or if it is less than 1. So or input number is less than 1, or it says or if it is greater than 399 or 3999, or input number is greater than 3999, just like this. And now we're going to create the body of the if. And now I can remove the step 4, so this is easier to read. So now inside the if statement, which is over here, we're going to do step 5, which is so step 5 says if the input is invalid, we're going to display a error message in the result div, which is our div that shows the Roman numeral. So let's do this first. We're gonna inside the if statement body, we are going to do result div, and since we already have the result div element, since we created on the first step, we could do result div. We could use that. We could do result div dot, and it says we're gonna set the inner HTML property of the result div to show the error message prompt, prompting the user to enter a valid number. So we're gonna do inner HTML just like this, and this inner HTML will just set this result div to whatever we prompted here. So we could do please enter a valid number between 1 and 3999, just like this. And so now if I remove this, we should have something like this. So basically this if is gonna run if the input number is not a number, or if the input number is less than 1, or the input number is greater than 3999, then this if statement will run, and it will change the result div in the HTML. So whatever is going to be inside this div, so like save this, so over here, we're going to remove what we just did. Over here, I will basically input this please enter a valid number 1 through 3099 inside our div. That's what the inner HTML does. So now if I were to type 4000, we should see please enter a valid number between 1 and 3999. Otherwise, if I were to type something like 2000, which is inside the range, nothing will happen. So now right under the result.innerHTML, we're gonna step 6 is to terminate the function to prevent further execution of unnecessary code. And in order to do this, right under our result div.innerHTML, and still inside the if statement, we are going to do just return, which will end the function, just like this. If I do 2000, we shall see nothing, but if I do 5000, we should see please enter a valid number between 1 and 3,999. So now we are done with this if statement, and you can see the end of the if statement right here. So this is the body and this is the closing. So after this closing if statement, we will do step 7, which is we're going to define the object named Roman numeral. So let's do that first. So we're going to do const Roman numerals, which is going to be equal to an object, just like this. This is how we define the object with the curly braces. To hold the Roman numerals symbols and their corresponding decimal values. So basically what we're going to do in here is we're going to have a key and a value. So each key value pair represents a symbol and its decimal value. So our key on the left side will be string m, and the value of the string m will be 1000 number. And make sure we separate it by a comma, and we can move on to the next key value pair, which will be cm, and cm will be 900. And we can always find these value the key and the value from Google. So if I do type Roman numerals, and we can just see that 1000 is M, 500 is D, 100 is C, 50 is L, and we can see all of them over here as well. So we will have CM 900, comma, D, which will be 500 number, and the string of CD, which will be 400, and the string of C, which will be 100, and the string of XC, which will be 90, and the string of L, which will be 50. Then we have a few more, which is XL, which will be a value of 40. Then the key of X, which will be a value of 10. And then a key of IX, which will be a value of 9. And a value or a key of V, which will be a value of 5 number. And two more left, and we're gonna have a IV key, which will have the value of 4, and I, which will be a value of 1, just like this. And this should be our complete object of Roman numerals. So now we can remove this, step 7, and under this Roman numeral object, so at the end of this body, under this, we will have step 8. So copy and paste that, and it says to create a variable named Roman numeral, not numerals, so make sure it's a numeral, single plural, and we're gonna assign it to an empty string to store the results of the Roman numerals. So we're gonna do a const Roman numeral, which is going to be equal to an empty string, just like this. And this will basically take in, so initialize it with the empty string to accumulate the Roman numeral symbols. So this will take every symbol and have it in the string format once we push it on step 9. So I am going to close this Roman numerals object so it's easier to read. We can always open it back up. So now step 9, under the Roman numeral string that we just created, we are going to iterate through each symbol in the Roman numerals object, which we created over here. So the Roman numerals object, we're going to iterate through all the symbols. So through each symbol in the Roman numerals object for conversion. So we're going to use a for in loop to iterate through each key value pair in the Roman numerals object. So to get started with this, we're going to do for, and we're going to have it let. So it says iterate through each symbol. So let symbol in. So it says each symbol in the Roman numerals. So each symbol, let symbol in Roman numeral. Make sure it's Roman numerals with the S. And we're gonna open it up just like this with the curly braces. So now step 10, which is inside the for in loop. Let me tidy it up. So now let me remove step 9. Actually, I'll just keep step 9. So now inside the for in loop we just created, we're going to do step 10, which is to repeat the conversion process until the remaining input is greater than the decimal value of the current symbol. So we're going to use a while loop to continue adding Roman numeral symbols until the remaining input is greater than the decimal value of the current symbol. So we could do a while loop. So a while is saying we're going to do a while loop until the remaining input number is greater than or equal to the Roman numerals or the current symbol. So in order to do this, we're going to do a while. So input number is greater than or equal to the Roman numerals. So we're taking the Roman numerals, and to take the value, or to take this, we're going to use the bracket notation to take the symbol. So symbol. So the for is going to loop through each symbol of the Roman numerals, and then over here we're going to do a while input number is greater than or equal to the Roman numeral symbol. This is where the symbol is coming from the for, which is looping through the Roman numerals. So now we're going to open the body up for this while loop, just like this. So we're inside our while loop now. For step 10 or 11, which is inside the while loop. So inside the while loop, right here, and let me just space this out so it's easier to read. And this is inside our while loop. This is the opening and closing of the body. We are gonna add the current symbol to the Roman numeral string based on its decimal value. So we could do Roman numeral, which we created up here. So the const of Roman numeral is an empty string right now. We're gonna add equal, which is concatenating each symbol to it. Roman numeral. Let me see if I spelled that right. Roman numeral, just like that, plus equals every symbol, just like this. And right under this, still inside the while loop body, we're gonna do step 12, which is to subtract the decimal value of the current symbol from the input number to continue the conversion process. So let me remove all the steps so it's easier to read of what we just did. Okay, so now we're on step 12. We're still inside the while loop. We're gonna subtract the decimal value from the current symbol of the input numbers. So just like over here, we had the Roman numeral symbols. We're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna subtract it instead. So we're gonna do Roman numeral, or not even Roman numeral. It says subtract decimal. So subtract the decimal value of the current symbol from the input number. So we're gonna do input number minus equals and it says the current symbol. So we get the current symbol, we're gonna do Roman numeral with the S and bracket notation to grab the symbol, just like this. Oh, and this Roman numeral up here, which we defined on step 28, or this previous step with the empty string, should be a let, since we are reassigning this. So now we have something like this, and this is everything in the while loop, which is inside our for loop right here. And basically the Roman numeral plus equal symbol is basically the same thing as me writing Roman numerals equal to Roman numeral plus symbol. And this is the same thing. It's just a shorthand. So it will be just a shorthand. So now we are done with the function. And so this is our for function. And this is our while function or loop right here. So after the for function, the for in function, we are going to do the last step, which is step 13, and make sure it's in the right spot. So this is our while loop, opening and closing body. And this is our for loop, which our while loop is in. This is the opening and this is the closing. Go always click next to it to see where the body ends. So under this for in loop, we're going to create step 13, which is update the content of the result div to display the converted Roman numeral. So just like we did here, it says please enter a valid number between 1 and 3,999. We're going to do the same thing with the result.div.innerHTML. So we could do result div.innerHTML equals, and it says to set the inner property of the result div to display the converted Roman numeral string, including the accumulated Roman numeral symbols. So we could do a template literal like this. So we could use this Roman numeral empty string right here inside it with whatever we want to type. So we could do Roman numeral, and the Roman numeral will be whatever is. So this we could call any element. So we're gonna call the Roman numeral variable, I mean, just like this. So now this should say Roman numeral and whatever is the value of this Roman numeral, which we defined over here. And this should be the symbols for whatever number we put in here. So make sure to save everything. And if we type 24 and convert, we should see the Roman numeral. So this is it for all of the code. You can play around with it and you could add more stuff to it. So if we do 3042, we could see the conversion. All right. So please don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you found it helpful. Thank you.